Hello, I'm the Romance Scrooge. I technically retired this channel about 7 years ago now. It started as stepping away from making more edited and scripted videos and switching to rambly videos, little to no edited videos, and live streams. I was originally making a switch from YouTube being a very time sink and intensive part-time job to more of a hobby. That's why most of my videos, up until more recently, like the last ones that are there, are rambly with just some text and maybe a picture. I was doing that for a while, and then I just left. I slipped out the proverbial back door and walked away without any goodbye or a full explanation as to what was going on. I've been trying to figure out exactly how to talk about the bigger picture of what happened behind the scenes for years now. I've been trying to figure out how to talk about this without going into too much personal detail, and I think I figured something out where I can give a general picture of what happened without giving names or details or whatever, but still sharing the bulk of all this anyway, or what I feel comfortable sharing. I burned out. I burned out so badly that I lost about 2 years of my life trying to recover and piece everything back together, let alone come back to YouTube. And when I say burned out, it was more than just a YouTube channel. There was a lot going on in my personal life, and I'm going to build up a little bit of that, or frame a little bit of that here shortly. I'm still trying to rebuild my life in general, but by this point I feel more stable and actualized and in a better place period than I was back in 2018. It was a massive achievement on my part to get as far as making that first video in August. I consider that the starting line to what I'm hoping to continue to do now. The next step was I wanted to make a few more videos and be sure that I could actually still write, and maybe I could learn to edit again. I think I'm doing an okay-ish job with that so far with KDN Live, which is one of the few video editing programs that just plays nicely with Linux without having to run something through Wine or whatever else, but I digress. I had to reassure myself that this wasn't some kind of fluke after years of writer's block and managing one solid character essay or episode rundown or whatever else every 6 months versus the once every 2 weeks rhythm that I used to have before 2017. I used to be able to write full-blown essays or put together, decent enough videos on a 1 to 2 week basis. I used to be able to do that from 2014 until around 2017, until I just lost it. I lost whatever that ability was, and it's only been recently that I've been able to write anything again or do anything. I'm going to try and articulate all this as best as I can before I lose my nerves again. This is going to be rambly word vomit. I've been trying so many different times to come up with something coherent, something that's as polished, or what I like to think is as polished as I can get with some of the stuff I've written. I'm still trying to work on making more coherent, to the point things, but yeah, I'm just going to try my best with this. At the time, it'd been 2 years since I graduated from college with a bachelor's degree. This is back in 2017, 2018. I still lived in my parents' basement, and I've been arguing with my mom about jobs. I wanted to focus on making and selling art. That's what I really wanted to do, because my bachelor's degree was in fine art. I had an entire art show's worth of paintings of bugs and other insects, and I'd spent several years putting all that together, and I thought I was good at it. But that wasn't happening. Selling art wasn't happening because I needed a real job. Real in air quotes. And no one was going to buy my art, and I was selling what art I did make for peanuts. It was a classic case of an artist with low self-esteem, believing in feeding into the myth of the starving artist. I was also working several part-time merchandiser jobs and having difficulty balancing all the various tasks and schedules involved with each one. These were make-your-own schedule jobs, but the caveats were that I was driving all over the place, my car was full of miscellaneous tools, paperwork, and these jobs are a better fit for someone that's way more organized than I could ever dream of being. Again, your car is full of a bunch of boxes. full of a bunch of paper and different tools depending on which kind of position it is. It's probably going to be full of stuff. I wanted an open, flexible schedule for reliable income, but still be able to carve out time for art or videos. Instead, I got lost in finding more and more merchandiser gigs and opportunities that actually paid versus the little to no money I made doing anything else. Both art and YouTube are slow burn ventures that require time, patience, some kind of planning, and risks that may not even pan out in the long run. I wasn't in the right headspace for either one of those. It's one thing to look at art commission prices and realize that 10 hours of work wouldn't make me enough to buy a McDonald's burger, and it's an extra layer of frustrating when I stacked work for peanuts art pricing next to wondering if pennies per view ad revenue was worth the time I sank into writing and editing videos, not to mention the increasing skepticism from my parents and various others towards my career choices and general life choices. I was an early 20-something that didn't know what I was doing, was trying to spend 6 different places at the same time. My life and self-worth were tied up in how much money I wasn't making, and I didn't even know if there was a person outside of the need to prove that I could be one of those few people that made it. One of those exceptions to the otherwise broke artists that well-meaning parents and teachers point at as an example of why focusing on art or YouTube or something unconventional that isn't a guaranteed well-worn career path is a bad idea. The fact that even gold star standard careers like the classic doctor, lawyer, or engineer can run into brick walls with potential employment is another can of worms entirely. I felt like a loser, failure, and I couldn't take the pressure anymore. A stronger person would take a sabbatical, reevaluate what they really wanted to or needed to do next, and return with a level head and plans on how to properly prioritize things, right? Instead of being that hypothetical, stronger person, I gutted everything with a machete. I quit all my jobs, I closed my commissions, and took down any art sale listings I had up. I deleted my original YouTube channel, in a heat of the moment decision that purging every stressful thing, would give me a clean slate or magically get rid of the stress or something. I needed a clean break. Something had to go to free up room in my life and my mind and my schedule, or everything needed to go. I don't know, I fucked up. So many of the videos I made are gone forever because I hadn't backed them up or saved them somewhere else. It was too late by the time I realized this. Most of the videos from 2017 or earlier are the few that I was able to actually find or rescue. It doesn't help that my laptop hard drive broke around this time too. I'd been using it for video editing, recording, making thumbnails, everything. It was all gone because I hadn't backed anything up. Unfortunately, 2017 was the start of figuring out that I had anxiety, depression, and a myriad of other things, but didn't have any ideas on what coping mechanisms, potential meds, or therapy might help. I'd watched 2 other people in my life wrestle with depression for years. It's a lifelong struggle with dips and valleys where a person can be at the height of accomplishments or it looks like everything is just fine. Then comes a dip and it can be triggered by unexpected changes. Too much stress, not acknowledging a problem that's been there for years. Daily life is a challenge by itself even for well-adjusted neurotypical people, and depression can slow everything to a crawl. It can screw with someone's perception of time so badly that a week flies by, and then 2 days feel like a year-long crawl through quicksand. One day, it's possible to zombie walk through a daily routine. The day after that, it's hard to work up the energy or motivation to put something as simple as a cheese sandwich together. The worst part is how dramatically different depression looks between people, the societal stigmas against it, and the misconception that it's, you'll just feel sad for a little while. There aren't obvious physical tells unless it's been going on long enough that it leads to obvious physical symptoms. In general, though, it's invisible and grossly underestimated. Something can work for years to minimize its impact, but then you have to figure out something entirely different because it suddenly doesn't work as well as it used to. I didn't want to admit that I had depression beyond what an average person might experience in their lifetime. For years, I'd been able to bottle things up. I managed to skate by with my nose in a book, taking walks, personal day goofing off. I'd seen a person spend a week-long stint in a mental hospital because nobody at home, including me, understood how much pain they were in or knew how to help them. I was so scared that I could end up in the same position, that I might get dragged away too, that I'd be looked at like I had three heads and feel so disconnected and isolated from the rest of the world that if anybody caught the slightest whiff that there was something off about me. Instead, everybody else knew something was off about me, and I was the last to find out. And I lived in denial for so long that I reached a breaking point so severe that I self-destructed and absolutely fell apart. I burnt out. Part of my problem was wrapping up my self-worth so strongly with how much money I might make or what job I had that I had trouble holding any kind of job for years. I dropped out of the workforce entirely for close to 2 years and felt so ashamed of myself. I barely had a social life because I honestly didn't know who I was or what I was worth because I didn't have a job. All my peers and family and friends had jobs or were able to slog through shifts at something they absolutely hated. It was a tug of war between wishing I was normal, feeling like I'd never be good enough or competent enough or just enough, period. Every time I tried to force myself to be normal, it was running headfirst into a wall, over and over and over. I was trying to return to the days of bottling things up, but I'd reached a point where I had to sit down and explore what the real problem was. If I wanted to be able to do something besides wake up and sit in a corner, or do something that wasn't just another year of feeling stagnant and stuck in the same place. Thankfully, I've had a really supportive partner and other fantastic people along the way that have helped talk me through the same things over and over again until I finally got the full picture of what those things were. It's only over the past 2 years that I started being able to reclaim any part of my life. COVID and other life events notwithstanding. I've been able to come out of the closet as a trans man and start HRT. I've been able to write the articles, stories, and whatever else I used to with much more frequency. I feel like I could actually write a short story or a full novella if I wanted to. If I just sat down, wrote an outline, actually planned things out, I'm actually able to do that again. I can't express enough how many years I spent looking at blank Word documents and feeling absolutely intimidated and just sometimes I could get something out, other times I couldn't. It sucked. It's only been recently that I've been able to write anything again. I feel like I'm an actual living, breathing person instead of a creaky, broken puppet because I'm no longer trying to fit some kind of mold. There used to be an ever-shifting goalpost. Nothing I made, nothing I did was ever good enough to meet this warped idea of what a normal working adult looks like or has. Letting myself be a flawed human being that's willing to learn and accepting those flaws is a much healthier, much more approachable place to be than chasing an ideal I could never properly describe or even had a fully realized image of. Everybody is a flawed human being. I can look at and sympathize with anybody else that had a bad day or made a mistake or finds themselves in a rough patch due to things outside of their control. If I don't believe that the perfect person exists, then I should apply the reasoning to how I look at or what I expect from myself too. This isn't a 100% on the other side of this situation. It's more that I'm finally in a decent enough spot that I can finally talk about it without locking up.